My name is Aubrey Martin from Martin Family Real Estate Group at Keller Williams, and this is one of our parts of our education series. Part one is going to be talking about interior decoration, and joining us today from her home office in Vancouver is Emily Powers from 360 Interiors. Emily, thank you so much for
Hi,
joining us today.
thanks for having me.
So one of the reasons I wanted to interview Emily is frankly because interior design and decoration is so outside of my wheelhouse. It's never been one of my strengths. And so I always defer to the experts, and Emily is an expert. So Emily, tell me a little bit about what your services entail, and then we're going to talk a little bit about sort of trends
Yeah.
and action items. So
Okay. Yeah. So, well, my tagline is designed to sell, live, work. And those are kind of the three main areas that I focus on. So the first one, sell, is I stage occupied homes to be listed on the market. And even in this seller's market, where things are just flying off like really fast, multiple offers, I'm still seeing how important it is to stage the house because curb appeal is everything. And, I talked to somebody recently that they didn't look at a house and it was on the market for 12 days, which sounds like forever. Because the pictures didn't look good. It didn't have curb appeal. So they didn't even want to go see it in person. So it still is really important to present your home in the best light. So, will it sell really fast without staging? Probably. But are you leaving money on the table? Probably.
statistics
So,
in real estate show that houses that are staged sell for much more and also for much less time on market.
right.
As far as the staging piece of it, it sounds like you're using items that are already in the home. What does that process look like when you go into a house to get staged?
Yeah, so I do. I specialize in occupied homes. I don't do vacant homes. I know a lot of amazing companies that do vacant homes, that I can refer to if people need that. But for the occupied homes, I'm going in and we're just kind of walking through each room and sort of talking about, like what we need to do in each room to maximize for picture day. And sometimes it's kind of moving things just a little bit, um, rearranging some stuff. One of the biggest things I like to tell people, because they want to ask, they feel like they need to get ready before the staging. It's like, don't do anything, and especially don't take down artwork. I think sometimes people think that they need to like take everything off the walls. Don't do that. Of course, they will have you take down like personal photos and things like that, but leave the artwork up.
And
That's
why
one
do
of
you
the things
why
that
do
I
you think
find.
that and why do you think that people um why do you feel like it's important for a home to be staged in the view of a buyer? In other words, why is
Yeah.
it important to see something with furniture in it or art? What does that do for the buyer?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think that, staging is so that they can, view the space and like see, and that is part of it. They want to see like, how is the couch going to fit in this room? Um, but it's mostly creating emotional connections to the home. When they walk in, they want to feel like they're at home. They want to feel like it's their home. And so that's why you want to remove the things that, are personal, like personal photos and things like that, because then you get the sense that you're in somebody else's home. But taking down like all the artwork, that kind of removes the personality and the character. And we want to keep that. We want to have that just emotional, like cozy, homey feel to it.
And so if we switch gears and we say we're not in the staging mode anymore, now we have a new happy family that has moved in. Tell me what the other part of your business looks like as far as the design aspect. Walk me through what that piece looks like.
Yeah. So that is like the second piece. And a lot of people who, I help them stage their home to sell, when they see the transformation that we can do with the things that they already have, they've had it the whole time. Um, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish that we would have done this when we first moved in. And they kind of think, well, we just want to get all of our stuff moved in, and then we'll figure out, like the perfect place for it later. And then, life happens later, never comes. So that's the second piece that I do, is like, people are moving into a new house. The furniture that you bought was for, your previous place of residence. And, so like, when you're picking out a piece of furniture, it's specifically for that space, you've measured it. And so when you're going into a new space, it's like, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, how do I get this to work in the new space that it wasn't really like, it wasn't meant for, not that it wasn't meant for, but you know what I mean? Like you didn't have that in mind at the time. So I help them come up with a plan, again, using like what they already have and arranging it in a way that, it looks good, but also really functions for their lifestyle.
And so how do you feel like you're different? You're an interior decorator as opposed to an
Yeah.
interior designer. So can you explain sort of what the difference is between those two functions?
Yeah, so an interior designer is more, like they're working with the builders. It's more like remodels. And it's funny because while I can do that, and I have done that, it seems like mostly what I've been doing is the decorating part, which is, helping people arrange what they already have, and then maybe filling in the gaps. Like, maybe it would be nice to have, a TV console here, or a bookcase here, or a different end table, and just kind of making it so that it flows and everything, just goes together.
Do you help people identify pieces that would work as far as, do you show people what they could buy? How does that work?
Yes. So, the first step is, yeah, I want to see the space. It makes a huge difference to actually like be in the space and get a feel for the space, and the personality and the character of the homeowners. And then I measure the space so I know exactly, what we're dealing with. You want it to be to scale. Um, and then I come up with mood boards to just kind of show how, like it would all look. I give them links. If they like that piece that I have suggested, they can go buy that, and it sort of takes me out of the middle, and, it kind of empowers them to do that on their own.
And so you're suggesting, where to put it and all of that,
Yeah,
but
a
there's really
floor
no
plan.
guesswork.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the floor plan, it's like a guide of like, this is where you can put the couch. That's why when I go to the house and I'm taking measurements, I get really detailed by measurements. I like to know, how high is the windowsill from the floor, because I don't want to block the windows if I don't have to. Let as much light in as possible.
So one thing that's come up a lot in real estate, and I know it has in your world as well, is just the effect of the COVID sort of shutdown
Oh,
on delays. One of the stories that I have experienced recently myself is I ordered a really nice center organizational piece for my daughter's room, and we ordered it in January, and it was supposed to be in by the end of February, and then that just got pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And at one point, once we said we got into May, I just sort of canceled it because it just seemed like it was never ending. So are you experiencing that with other companies as well? What have the delays been, and any sort of feedback on that?
yeah, I also know some clients who have had to just cancel because it's taking so long. And so I think if you go into it with the knowledge that, and it's everywhere. It's the Pottery Barns, it's like all the major big stores, but also I've seen that it's starting to affect, like the bigger box online stores like Wayfair, um, and Overstock. Those are also like, they're selling out of stuff because people are like, well, I can't get my furniture from Pottery Barn, so like, where do I go to get that? And so it's really just this trickle down effect, and it's affecting every area of furniture now. And so the delays, we keep hoping that it's going to get better, but I have a feeling that's going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, and I
So
know that like IKEA, their biggest outages right now are all furniture and
yeah,
organization. Of course, there's a reason for that, right? And
yeah,
actually, it's probably two reasons. Number one is that because of COVID, people are really sort of putting more time and effort and money into their homes to make it work for them, to make it livable. And the other piece of it, which cannot be understated, is just the cost of supplies and lumber.
Oh,
That is sort of a different conversation for a different day. But when you have lumber prices that are 3 times more expensive than they were 2 years ago,
yeah,
and in part it's because when this COVID thing happened, they expected that the builders, the new construction builders, they thought that we were going to go into some sort of housing recession, which they followed the National Association of Realtors. They would have realized that that was not true, but they
yeah,
did, and so they understaffed all of their lumber yards, and all this has been about them trying to get back up to speed. In addition to the wildfires that we had, so
right.
the cost of lumber has just gone through the roof, in addition to just delays in delivery in general. I think that this is even crossing over into the smaller shops as well. I'm definitely a shop local kind of gal. And I
Yeah,
do know that the furniture places as well, unless they're making things in-house, which is sort of
right.
unusual these days, that they're definitely experiencing delays across the board. And it just sort of, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go in and buy something like right off of the showroom floor, that might be an option. But it also like maybe that's the only one that they have, and they want to keep that for display too. So
They have nothing to
yeah,
sell.
it's
They have nothing to
it's
sell.
it is rough. It's rough out there, and I feel like I feel like it's gonna last for at least another 6 months. I feel like it's gonna at least through the end of this year. I think that we're like if we're just sort of expecting it, if we're expecting the delays, then we're just trying our best to be patient, and these are things that we can't control. Um,
Well, and as things
Unfortunately,
open back up, I think things will get better.
yeah,
They just sort of are where we are right now. Um, if we switch gears a little bit, one thing I really love to talk about, because I'm so not versed in interior design, which Emily will know soon enough when she comes to my house and helps me, is that are there trends that are happening this year, the last couple of years, in color, in design, in finishes? What does that look like?
yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like a lot of the trends this year are all you can trace it all back to COVID. Like it's all COVID inspired things. Of course, people are wanting, really nice home office setups because before they didn't really need that. But, now with like, the Zooms, you're doing Zoom meetings, you really need this designated space that is just more effective and efficient for working. Outdoor living spaces, of course, are getting really popular because like where else are you going to go that you can't go to the restaurants really, and so people are wanting to like get out of the house, and so those are getting really big, and like she sheds and some of these things were already kind of popular before, but I've just
Mhm.
seen like a huge increase since COVID. Sanctuary spaces, people are really into now creating some spaces where they can just like decompress and unwind and maybe meditate, read, just kind of have some silence and some peace.
Away from our
And
children?
yes, oh my gosh.
Can you create a whole house that's a sanctuary for me? That would be great.
Yeah, the kids have a room that's like they're in the she shed. So yeah. um what else is this as far as style? Japandi, I don't know if you've heard of that. It's kind of a cross and a hybrid between like Asian and Scandinavian, where
Mhm.
it's just like very minimal, like very clean lines, low profile. I think people are getting a little tired of just like the huge and overstuffed and clunky things, and they're kind of looking a little bit more for like slick and minimalist.
You see that actually in real estate too, that one of
Yeah,
the most popular types of homes in the Northwest is this Northwest contemporary, which is, it's interesting because they're usually built in like the 70s, that sort of mid-century style with sort of higher ceilings and very clean lines. And
yeah,
now it seems to be kind of coming back to furnishings that really go along with that. But that
Right.
I never actually heard that term before, but that combination of Japanese and Scandinavian,
Hmm.
the thing that IKEA really captures really, really well and has for many decades. But I do think, like, we just bought a knockoff of an Eames chair, that kind of, that cod
Oh,
chair, right? That kind of mid-century, just very not necessarily uncomfortable, but just
right.
less bulky, right? Less clunky.
Yes.
So, and are you seeing that style in people's homes regardless of the type of home that they have? Is that more in like the new construction folks
Yeah,
or?
I would say it's probably new construction. It's, you do kind of have to take into consideration the style of the home. Um, there's a certain, especially like the 80s and the 90s, it's hard to like mesh the two,
Yeah.
so
90s tends to be very traditional, very
right.
traditional. Floor plans and the
Yeah.
surfaces tend to be much darker, much heavier. Lots of
Hmm.
curved windows and
Yeah.
tile counters, and the
Oh, I
90s brought
know.
us all sorts of joy.
I know. It is kind of fun to like look back through the decades, because that is usually about how long trends last. So we're kind of entering in, the beginning of trends, which I am personally loving, because I think we're finally coming down from the neutrals. Not that I have anything against neutrals, but I love color too. I mean, as you could, like my wall behind me. Um, Color. And so people are, and I don't know if that also is, it's probably also a COVID thing where we're just like tired of the gray and dreary, like beiges. Let's have some color.
Especially in the Northwest.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we already have enough gray. We don't need any more gray in our
Well,
house.
and I think you're right about the COVID piece of it, because if we're also inside, because we
Yeah.
have to be, then right, we definitely want more color. Anything that
Yeah.
you see sort of coming on the horizon as far as things as they shift?
Let's see. I mean, you probably already know about this, but like wallpaper's coming back. That's starting to be a big trend now. Um,
As
you
like
know,
a whole room, or as just like an accent wall?
yeah, some people are doing whole rooms. Which, yeah, it's so funny because I remember my mom was really into wallpapering in the 80s. And then it was like no wallpaper, like you don't want any wallpaper. Um, but now I'm finding, and I think again, it just goes back to like people are wanting color and pattern and texture. And so I think that that's definitely part of it. And it's interesting how it affects your mood, and kind of just going back to like emotions, colors and patterns, like it can evoke emotions, and it can just give a sense of like happiness and cheerfulness, or rest and relaxation. And so people are just really starting to see that their environment is very important. um, I actually so I have a really good quote that I love, and I might mess it up, but it's basically, when a flower doesn't bloom, you change the environment in which it grows, you don't fix the flower. So
Mhm.
yeah, our environment, our surroundings, especially when we're in them so much more because of COVID, very important.
I think that's probably a pretty good quote for our lives right now in general.
Right? I agree. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. It's been a
Yes.
pleasure chatting with you,
You
and
too.
we will make sure that people have your business and your contact information. But if you want to share it on the video as well before we sign off, that would be great.
Okay. Just say it. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
So
your business
just
information. That's
okay. Well, so my email is emily@360interiors.com. And my website is also www.360interiors.com. And it's all spelled out. It's not the numbers, so it's actually like the THRE. So it's kind of long, but it's pretty easy.
Well, we appreciate your time. This has been
Thank
Aubrey Martin, Speak with Emily
you.
Powers. I'm with Martin Family Real Estate Group, and looking forward to doing our next educational series, with which features JC Rogauskas, and we'll be talking about the flipping of homes and investment. So yeah,
Exciting. Oh
another
my
good
gosh.
one. Thank
Excited
you
for
so much.
that. Thank you, Aubrey, so
Thank
much. It
you,
was so
Emily.
good to talk to you.
You too.
All right. Have a great one.
You too. Thanks for joining.